Hello, fellow Earthlings. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we will be exploring the concept of pain. In the journey of self-discovery and personal growth, pain often serves as a transformative force. While it may seem counterintuitive, embracing pain can lead to profound changes and new possibilities. I know this very well from personal experience. We all experience pain, whether that is physical or emotional. We might experience pain at varying degrees, but it is a sensation that every Earthling is going to experience at some degree on this plane of existence. We currently live in a culture that largely encourages us to avoid pain and seek pleasure. You can find evidence of that pretty much everywhere. There's often a message that if we are experiencing pain, then there must be something wrong, and we need to do whatever we can to change that, right? I certainly fell for this concept many times in my life. As a former feel-good junkie, I went through all sorts of measures to drown out my pain. But there's a spiritual paradox that happens here. The more I sought pleasure, the more pain I experienced. Me trying to avoid pain brought about higher levels of pain, but how? In my language video, we discussed that opposites are identical in nature, but at different degrees. We see this occur with pleasure and pain. The feeling of pleasure and the feeling of pain shows that two seemingly contrasting experiences are intricately linked, moving along a spectrum. I know what pleasure feels like because I've experienced pain. I know what pain feels like because I have experienced pleasure. Without this contrast, I could not understand either concept. Along this spectrum of perceived opposites, pain and pleasure, there is a principle of rhythm which occurs between these two poles. The principle of rhythm tells us that everything flows in and out. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left, and rhythm will always compensate. So if I want to be a feel-good junkie and take large amounts of dopamine hits to give me maximum amount of pleasure, then the pendulum will swing high towards pleasure. But if rhythm compensates, then what does that mean? If I want to experience high highs, then I'm going to experience low lows. The pendulum swing can certainly be dramatic as it used to be with me, but it doesn't have to be dramatic. Have you ever met someone with, someone who seems to swing with less rhythm, less intensity in life? They're more a little bit like this, right? Understanding this principle means that we start better understanding our emotional states and the natural fluxes of our lives. When we get to know our emotional states better, we are able to avoid the more dramatic pendulum swing of our emotions. By understanding this principle, we can see that nothing lasts forever. We can see that everything in this earth plane is subjected to this principle. See if you can locate these natural fluxes in your environment in various ways. Sometimes it is easier to start there than to do practices within ourselves. Once we can start identifying the natural fluxes as an integral part of Earth School, they start to feel less polarizing. We just know that it's a part of the rhythm and that nothing lasts forever. Okay, so back to pain. Doing the work isn't easy. Giving up addictions, changing behaviors, questioning things is hard. There is pain or suffering involved in making these changes. It takes some major warrior strength, but if you can lean into the suffering, walk through the suffering, you will discover gold. There is gold to be mined in darkness. It will get you to another side. I didn't say you had to do it perfectly or even gracefully all of the time. It is more important that you just do it within your current level of capacity. Sometimes you will have a choice on what you want to address within your current level of capacity. Other times, life will deliver you a situation that you have no choice but to address within that moment. You don't get to choose. There have been times in my life where I have been completely out of my mind. I am over 7 years sober. What do you think the end of my addiction looked like? Insanity, complete insanity of the mind, brain swollen, nervous system shot, all the feelings I didn't want to address shoved deep in my body trying to come up. My addictions were my solution for a time. I wasn't an idiot. I was attempting to help myself. I was self-medicating to avoid pain. The self-medication was a coping mechanism that worked for a little bit. Then it turned on me. The self-medicating pleasure I was engaging in brought about massive amounts of pain and suffering. The pain didn't go away, but rather increased to a whole new level. Have you ever tried holding a beach ball underwater? If each beach ball was a suppressed emotion, how many beach balls would you have to hold under? Eventually, you couldn't do it anymore, and those beach balls would come up out of the water pretty forcefully. What do you think early sobriety looked like for me? What happens to a shot nervous system when you stop medicating with nervous system depressants? It completely freaks out. All of the feelings I suppressed started coming back up. Feelings felt like a death sentence to me, incredibly intense. Physically, I was a mess, sick all the time. Poor gut health, depression, anxiety, autoimmune, blood sugar issues, broken down spine. I had nutritional deficiencies galore, things like vitamin B really low. Who knows what vitamin B does in the body? Not having enough of it will give you depression. Serotonin is secreted in the gut. Poor gut health will give you depression. Blood sugar imbalances will cause an array of irrational behaviors affecting one's mental health. Spinal health will absolutely affect mood, and we know autoimmune causes emotional disturbances. Earthlings have a physical body, an emotional body, a mental body, and a spiritual body. I was sick in all 4 of these aspects of myself as a whole. That was just my story. You might be going through something different in terms of details, but still the same outline. Something that is affecting your mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual well-being. Well, then you better get good at suffering. This is how you get the gold and the lesson. Then it doesn't feel like suffering anymore. Surrendering to the pain, finding purpose for your pain will start to decrease the pain. Another paradox. When I stopped avoiding my pain and addressed it head on, everything started to become less painful over time and major transformation occurred. But I had to walk through the painful portions before I could start getting glimpses of the other side of the spectrum, right? Ignoring or trying to override the pain will cause more pain. We don't hold the higher perspective. Our higher power, or whatever word you choose to call it, does. So we cannot know the why sometimes. Why are we going through the things we are going through? Why we struggle with the things we struggle with. And that is hard. God, spirit, the universe has me personally on a need-to-know basis, and sometimes it decides that I just don't need to know. One thing that helped me was finding evidence. I will give you an example. A year before I got sober, I was in a terrible car accident. Thankfully, it was a single car accident with just myself. I was loaded on alcohol and pain pills and rolled my car several times off a small drop-off. Not my proudest moment in life. I spent 3 days in the hospital. I totaled my car. At this time, I now had a DUI. The financial cost alone of these things was absolutely enormous. At this point, I was barely functioning as an earthling. In my mind, this was the worst thing that could have happened to me. Worst. I saw no benefit to this event at that time. It was awful. Today, I can look back at this situation as one of the best things that ever happened to me. I was court ordered to certain programs that addressed my addiction. I met people who were once where I was, so I began to feel less alone. There is a phrase often used that says the opposite of addiction is connection. I felt so alone and largely judged being an addict. Then I met people who knew how to help me if I wanted help. They understood because they had been where I had been. And the process of profound change and new possibilities began. What if that incredibly painful and terrifying experience did not happen? Would I have still gotten the lesson that got me to where I am today? I don't know. There was so much pain in those times for me. And I learned so much through all of that pain. That pain had messages for me. It had information. It guided me back to myself. We often get caught in these cycles. We don't learn the lesson we are supposed to learn, so the lesson repeats over and over and over again. If nothing changes, then nothing changes. So I had to change something. Of course, I didn't make monumental changes overnight, but I had to start somewhere and build my capacity for more. We cannot address all of our pain at once. Start with something. Maybe it is the thing that you have the most capacity to address. Maybe it is the thing that is bringing you the most consequences in your life. We now live in an era where people are more open about their pain and struggles. Our parents and grandparents didn't seem to have that luxury. Even things like therapy and support groups were much more taboo, often making the person experiencing the issues feel even more isolated. Isolation creates worlds of problem. And just to be clear, we can be in a room full of people and still mentally isolate, thinking that no one understands us, that we are all alone in our suffering, all alone in our situations and feelings. When we feel alone in our pain, it becomes much harder to heal or move through it. In this solitude, we become both the prisoner and the warden. In reality, our pain is quite common. Chances are we suffer from something that a large quantity of other people suffer from as well. There are other people who tread similar paths, their footprints etched in the same soil. Often we are stuck in this isolation. We long for connection, yet fear rejection. We are embarrassed or ashamed or afraid to be seen. Sometimes we think we are bad or broken or unlovable. I speak from experience. Usually the first step to addressing the pain is to get out of isolation. We need to find something or someone outside of us to connect to. Someone with a shared experience or to share the experience with. Our modern world has a plethora of avenues for this, and with the birth of the internet, you have access to resources worldwide. When you realize that you are one of many who suffer, and that suffering is a pathway to self-realization, a way to bring you back to yourself, that there is purpose for it, that you are not meant to just suffer in vain, and that although you cannot see the point to it now, one day it will become clear if you just put in the work. We can change our perspective on our personal challenges and make the path more manageable. But there has to be trust or faith in some sort that through darkness comes light, that there is gold waiting for you on the other side. This is personal alchemy. There are many people in this world, both living and dead, who I immensely look up to. They have been my teachers, and none of them had easy lives. They overcame great challenges, which is what made them great, which is what made them influential. It is the hero's journey, right? Moving through pain is parallel to embarking on a hero's journey. And when I speak of the hero's journey, I am talking about the powerful narrative archetype found in countless stories across cultures and time periods where suffering becomes the vessel for growth and self-discovery, where one stands at the threshold, pain echoing within. A call arrives, beckoning one to explore, asking one to leave behind familiarities and comforts. They enter the path and they encounter obstacles, right? Such as grief, rage, despair, and pain. But they are already on the path, so allies will start to emerge for them, right? Mentors, allies, kindred souls will show up on the path if we walk it. They keep going, but it is treacherous, right? They climb mountains of doubt, valleys of anguish, and emotional tides surge, but they keep going, and wisdom starts to flower. Self-awareness will dawn. This person starts to rise, reborn, scarred, but strong. Their pain will become a testament to their resilience, and they will return with gifts, insight, wisdom, empathy, and compassion for others who suffered like they once did. This is the narrative we all have access to if we choose to walk it. Suffering is heavily increased and hard to overcome when we cannot find purpose for our pain and are alone in our suffering. Figure out how to make that connection so you can start your hero's journey if you so choose. If you like this content, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you can be alerted when I release a new video. Until next time, to thine own self be true.